Hi, I'm Nicole from Smergos.
And I'm Nick from Smergos. And we've partnered with an amazing person who runs an organization that's quite different. So, Maddie, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Marty from Skullfake, and yes, I'm from A StrangerKind, and we do a bit of a pop-up events where we get some volunteers that's willing to talk about topics that sometimes we don't talk about often, or that people are unsure of, or just interesting topics, people from different backgrounds and different kind of histories or life experiences. And we encourage people from the public to come and speak to our volunteers. And the nice thing about these conversational spaces that we're creating is that we encourage people to feel comfortable asking literally any question they ever wanted to ask about it. And so for us, being approached by you guys to do an event specifically focused around disability has been a very exciting idea for us, and yeah, so we're just happy to be part of this.
So, Maddie, where did Ask start?
So it's been running for a few years, and it was kind of born out of I always joke and say, I loved ruining family dinners, and someone encouraged me at some point to maybe find a different place to engage around topics of conversation that I think is fascinating, and I think it's potentially, you get to learn so much about people if you create a space where you're allowed to ask questions. We're always told to not be nosy, or but we're curious by nature, and everyone that we've ever become close to, they were at some point a stranger. And I thought, what would happen if we create a space where people upfront know that it's okay to be ignorant about something, be curious about something, and be allowed to ask those questions that we're always told you're not allowed to ask, or approach someone knowing that they are keen on sharing with you a little bit about their life experience. And so we've been doing that for a few years, and it's incredible to see how South Africans love this space, how much it's needed. Just meeting people that is different to us. Some of our topics involve some difficult life experiences, people that's been through traumatic experiences, or people that's living with challenges. But some of it is also just people with interesting occupations, or people living day-to-day lives, what it's like to be a single mom, and someone wants to sit down and speak to them and ask them questions that they maybe not sure how to ask. And I think what is nice about the stranger aspect is, there's no risk of offending someone to the point that you lose this whole relationship. So if you maybe ask a question that you are scared is going to offend this person, or be very sensitive, or you don't have to see that person ever again. So there's no risk in terms of a lot of history that might go awry, or and so that's why this concept really works. So and for us, I would love to also just, people that know what we do, but I think something that I'm very excited to be partnering with you guys is maybe just also telling us what Smergos does. I mean, you guys are amazing. I think it's such an important job for people to understand, especially for us that's very passionate about inclusive spaces. So if you can also maybe just share with people what you guys do.
Sure. So I'll start, and then Nick is always welcome to add in. So both Nick and I are people living with physical disabilities. And so, we've experienced firsthand a lot of the challenges and oftentimes discrimination that people with disabilities are faced. And that was one of the reasons why we created Smergos, was an opportunity for us to try and, break down some of those barriers and build bridges among people with and without disabilities. And there's a couple of initiatives that we do towards that goal. And what we found has worked really well with these Move Talks that we started a few years back, because these Move Talks encouraged everyone to attend, people with and without disabilities. And we spoke about a range of topics and had different types of events. And all of that was to create an environment that would, exactly like you mentioned, have these open conversations. There's no judgment. There's no fear of feeling like you're going to put a foot wrong. It's just about being open. And that was why when we learned about you and what Ask was doing, we just saw that there was so much synergy, and we're so happy to be working with you on this event.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to add?
Well, for me, when I was typing out that email to you, Maddie, and then you replied and you're like, Smergos, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. So it was an awesome moment knowing that we were passionate, and then met with that same passion on your side. It was really, really exciting. I mean, I hopped on the call on a call with Nicole, and I was like, you know that person I told you about last year? Well, I've contacted her, and she's also interested. But like, we're super, super excited. So it was really, really cool. I also enjoyed the brainstorming that we all did together when it came to this event. And how do we approach it, and who do we ask, and how do we, you know, bring these people together in a space that they would be comfortable asking those questions, but at the same time bringing volunteers in that are comfortable with sharing that, because I think that's the important thing. You know, you mentioned something just now, Maddie, that you know, you can ask, like, let's say I had to ask Nicole a very personal question, or a somewhat un-PC question. Now, Nicole and I have been friends for many years. I could get away with it probably, but then, as you said, there could also be that, what the hell, you know, you've known me for so long, how can you ask something like that? But then in this situation, in the Ask event, or the hashtag Just Ask, which is what it's called, in the hashtag Just Ask, these volunteers have been like almost briefed or prepared to be okay. And obviously they have an opt-out function, right? Or they opt-out function, it sounds like very AI. They have a way to say, like, you know, thank you for that question, but unfortunately I'm not comfortable enough. So they don't have to answer everything, right?
And I think that's a big part of what we're trying to also teach people, is that it's always okay to ask. If you ask respectfully, if you tell someone, listen, I hope this isn't offensive, you don't even have to say that. But if you ask out of an authentic space a question, people are allowed to answer or not answer. And all of our volunteers, and it's so funny because our volunteers always go, no one is really asking you the difficult stuff. They're kind of waiting for people to push the boundaries, even on the questions, because they understand the value of people and like getting this info. But you know, our volunteers know that if there's maybe a point where you are pushing into a space they're not comfortable with, or they haven't even thought of that answer yet, all they'll do is they'll tell you, listen, I'm not comfortable answering that, but please ask me something else. So you won't be met with a chair being flung your way, or, you know, some like hand going up and going, okay, we need to get this person out of the room, they're offensive or something. There's nothing like that. So you are at no risk. But also what we tell people is, because like, I mean, to be honest, it took me, I was in my 30s before I actually had a very open conversation with someone in a wheelchair. And I remember my anxiety, because one of my volunteers, actually, it will be one of our volunteers that will be joining us on Saturday. I remember him coming up and I was going, and I was like, oh, this is why we created this space. And I was completely overwhelmed. And I was like, because there's someone that was with him that kind of translated, because he has speech impediment. So I was going, do I speak to you or do I speak to you? And I don't want to offend you and act like you're not here. And I was freaking out completely. And, you know, it was such a beautiful moment. But I think in that space, I realized for me how important it is. I think one of the things over the past 5-6 years that I've seen, which is why I'm so passionate about talking about disability, is just how unaware a lot of us are about not just the invisible disabilities or visible disabilities even, but what true accessibility means and what true inclusivity means. You know, I've made so many mistakes still as an organizer, still even getting all this information, having very open and honest conversations with our volunteers. You know, I learned so much by just being completely vulnerable with them and saying, listen, I have no idea. We are having this event in this venue. What am I missing? Or our volunteers coming back to me afterwards and saying, listen, I just want to let you know, maybe next time consider this. And it's so beautiful to see how as an organization we grow, how as a person I've grown, but also what it shifts in you, speaking to someone and going, oh, wow, I've never thought of it like that. And I think that's what's so beautiful what you guys are doing, you know, in corporate spaces, in general life, like day-to-day things. There's so many things that someone like me might take for granted. But at the same time, and I'm hoping that that's also something that will come through at this event, is when people speak to people with these disability topics, is to also realize it doesn't define them, you know? I mean, you guys are business owners. I mean, it's so oftentimes, and especially maybe with visible disabilities, that people go, oh, you know, their lives are kind of, this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that people, when they have these conversational spaces, and that's why it's a conversational space and not necessarily a workshop on it or a Q&A presentation maybe, but it's that in this conversation, you're going to pick up something that you share with this person. You know, there's oh, you both grew up in this area, or you both had this experience with your mom, or, you know, and to also maybe the next time when you come across someone with a disability, to remember that as well. So I'm really excited to know what an event like this could do, a collaboration like this, because for me, even with these brainstorming sessions, you know, the knowledge that you guys bring to space, the awareness for even us to think about things differently, it's been incredible. Yeah.
I love that, Maddie. And I love what you were saying about, you know, you mentioned your personal experience and actually being open and saying, I don't know this, or I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the best approach that you could take, and why events like this are important, because it's about asking those questions and not assuming, which I think a lot of the time people will just assume, for example, with someone like me who's in a wheelchair, oh, she needs help, let me just grab her wheelchair handles and push her. But that's actually the last thing that I want. Rather ask, do you need assistance? Are you okay? And then if I need assistance, I'll say yes. And if I'm okay, then I'll say, thank you so much, but I'm actually all right. And that's what I'm really hoping that our event, well, next week, Saturday, will bring about, is encourage people to just to be able to, as you say, a safe space to ask those questions and move forward in their life with this greater understanding.
Yeah.